my name is Jenelle Riley. I'm the film and television editor of Backstage. I'm honored and obviously a little bit intimidated to be here today for this conversation with Robert Duvall. We have a lot of great actors who come through here, obviously, but it's very rare we get to spend time with an actual legend. In his 100-plus films, Duvall has created some of the most memorable characters in film history, people like Boo Radley, Tom Hagen, Max Sledge, Major Frank Burns, Lieutenant Colonel Bull Meacham. Most recently, he's been seen on the screen in the film Get Low as Felix Bush, another terrific performance. It's funny, I was going to say he needs no introduction, but I just gave you one. Please join me in welcoming Robert Duvall.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll sit over here, right?
Yes, that's you.
Thank you. Mighty audience. Yeah, great.
Thank you so much for being here with a bunch of actors today. So kind of you to spend some time with us. I actually want to go back and start at the very beginning. When did you get interested in acting?
When my parents pushed me into it.
See, this blows my mind.
True. I was from a military family and I wasn't doing so good academically. So as an expedient thing, they kind of suggested that I go try acting on an academic level to get me through school, you know. So it kind of, I got my first A and kind of in a small college in Illinois, and they were the ones. My parents were the ones that kind of pushed me into it, or nudged me, so to speak, you know. I didn't know what I wanted to do, really.
Do you remember the first time you got on a stage? What play you were doing? Or?
Yeah, it was a play called The Story of Two Pierrots. I played a Harlequin clown in a mime play by Bill Snyder. It was wonderful. To Ravel and Stravinsky music, and within the play, Harlequin's players actually put on a play within a play on Gone with the Wind in mime. So figure that one out. Yeah, and it was pretty interesting. It was a small college, but they had some good people, and they had the people, the Pomeranz had that Gateway Summer Theater in Bellport, where I went and did a lot of theater during the summer, and but that's where it started, there on that stage where I did that mime play way back. It was nice because there was a lot of movement, and you didn't have to talk. You didn't have to learn lines. So it was nice. It was great.
Did your parents realize they were pushing you towards a career, or did they just think this would be a hobby?
Well, both. I mean, I went in the Army as a draftee, and then they when I was about to finish my service, they said, would you want to go to OCS, Officer Training? I said, no, I'm going to be an actor. But so I went to New York from there, but and then they were very supportive. They were all supportive, you know, right from the beginning, really.
What made you go to New York right out of the Army?
Well, that's the place to go, New York. You know, went to the neighborhood playhouse, and you go to be a theater actor, you know, and it's tough. You know, I rented a room for $7 a week from this crazy Russian guy, and I would walk across town on 57th Street every day to calm my nerves down. And I remember my mother climbed up this tenement stair. You know, came from a military background, a little bit, you know, somewhat limited, and she climbed all the way up those stairs, and she met my Russian landlord. No, he kissed her hand and everything. She said, well, you're not a communist, are you? I said, Mom, please. You know. So, you know, it was tough in the beginning, but a lot of fun. A lot of tough fun, you know, New York, and you teamed up, eventually met, you know, Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman, and myself and my brother and about 3 others were roommates. And Gene was downtown with his wife. They lived downtown, and we had a lot of good times. And I never see those guys now. It's funny. You see them more then than now, really. It's a very fickle business that way. You finish a job, you never see anybody. It's strange. Everybody lives so far apart, you know, in different parts of the country, really.
Were you in classes with Dustin and Gene?
No. Oh, eventually, kind of. Mm-hmm. We went to another guy, but no, not so much. I knew Gene first, Gene.
Could you tell even then that they had that quality that was going to help them? Yeah, well,
I said that for whatever reasons, Dusty Hoffman should never get out of the business because he was very unique, you know. And I got with an agent. I'm not with him now, but he turned both of them down at one time. Hackman and Hoffman, if you could believe that. A very prophetic guy, you know. But yeah, we had a lot of good times, good parties, and a lot of fun. We really did. You know, it was great times.
And did you start studying with Sanford Meisner immediately? Was he your
Well,
first
I went to New
teacher?
York. Yeah, I'd done a lot of theater before that, summer stock, and a lot of it. And then I went to the neighborhood playhouse with Sandy Meisner. Yeah, it was interesting, you know, working with him. And he once said that he was easier to please than Lee Strasberg, because Lee Strasberg really took the joy out of it, I guess, you know. I actually, you know, I guess he was very brilliant, Strasberg, but, you know, if you read Brando's book, he trashed Strasberg.
Oh, really?
For whatever reasons, I don't know. Well, there was a lot of competition, the three, you know, I guess Meisner and Strasberg and then Stella Adler all came out of the group theater, you know, so they were kind of competitive, you know. And Meisner once said, I'm a little easier to please than Strasberg. Strasberg was very tough on people, you know.
How did you end up with Meisner?
A guy named Ricky Morse, Bobby Morse, Robert Morse,
wow.
who did a stint on Broadway. We were supposed to go to the neighborhood playhouse. I went on the GI Bill, and the week that I started, he got a lead on Broadway in The Matchmaker. And here I'm going to school, and he got a lead on Broadway, Bobby Morse. And they recommended, and, you know, I went there, and it was interesting, you know. I learned a lot. It was like a shortcut. Maybe I would have gotten it anyway had I not gone, but it was kind of a legitimate shortcut by going to someone who can help you somewhat.
You'd actually been acting on stage before you started taking classes.
A lot of summer theater, yeah.
Did you, when you started taking classes, did you feel you'd been doing it wrong up until this point?
Not wrong, but maybe limited or necessarily being open to learn more, to improvise. Once I learned to improvise, that was nice, you know, like talk and listen. Because, you know, everybody knows that's the beginning and the end of acting, is talking and listening. It's not easy to stay simple. Somebody said, you know, well, I just saw you in something. All you did was play yourself. I said, well, try it. Try it. And, you know, I mean, I work with Alan Arkin, what's a great guy. We had great discussions, and we came to the conclusion that probably a guy like Spencer Tracy was a better actor than a guy like, I can't even think of the guy's name now, Paul Muni, who did all makeup and accents, and it was a lot of acting. Well, a guy like Spencer Tracy, it really came from himself. Even when he played a character, going back to talking and listening and talking. Although, when he did Old Man in the Sea, the communist daily newspaper in Havana, Cuba, just destroyed him.
Really?
Said he was terrible. He was a guy with a big girth trying to play a Latin, you know, but whatever, you know, but still, you know, whatever he did well, he did really well. A guy like Spencer Tracy, you know, and I don't think he had the actor's studio. I don't think he had Meisner. He had his own instincts, really.
That's interesting. Have you ever felt in your career that you were miscast?
Probably. I mean, I've done some, you know, things that, you know, I would not go back and want to see. You know? And some maybe I would, you know. I mean, yeah.
From the beginning, did acting come to you fairly easy, or did you sort of struggle with it?
Well, it depends. Yes and no. I mean, I'm sure people answer some parts. Sometimes it's easier to do something emotional than to do this, you know, than to something simple like that. And sometimes it did. You know, you at first you're nervous. I think now the young actors are better than ever. Really? I think the level has gone up with directors as far as asking for. You know, when I did the original True Grit, the director said to an actor, now when I say action, tense up, goddammit. Now, I mean, if a guy said that now, I mean, can you imagine saying that to Joe Montana in the Super Bowl, something like that? There's a difference between intensity and tenseness, you know. So I think the directors today, the good ones, they're still bad in everything, or they're more willing to turn the process around and let it come from the actor. Well, like Gene Hackman once said, he was doing a movie and John Ford came on and had he gave him one scene to direct. It was a bunch of soldiers, so he went down the line, going up, 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 up. I mean, everything had to be up and out in those days like a proscenium. I mean, when I did True Grit, you look around, the guys, they cut, what are you looking at? I said, well, you know, I'm trying to act natural. So they wanted you to be out, you know. But today, I think the directors are willing to turn the process around and let the actor let it come from the subject. You know, because you can learn from each other.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn from each other. Somebody says, what's it like to work with a first-time director like in Get Low? Well, it's okay. What's it like to work with a 50th time director who's no good, you know what I mean? So it depends, you know, it depends.
Is it difficult for you if you aren't getting along with the director? Because you're a great director yourself. How do you work through that? Do you speak up, or do you?
Yeah, you speak up sometimes. Oh, you got to. You got to speak up. You got to defend your turf. But I mean, you try to come to a common meeting. You know, one time I did a TV show, and the director said, I couldn't get along with you, so I tossed and turned all night. I couldn't sleep. So I was doing The Chase at the time, and Brando was like our Godfather. I went over to him and told him this, that this guy said he couldn't sleep. He said, well, tell him you don't care if he toss and turn all night, tell him to go fuck himself. Brando, okay.
Did you?
No. Sometimes, yeah, but you gotta find a way of meeting. I'm sure all these people they know, you gotta try to find, but sometimes if things perfect, peaceful, utopian, so to speak, the movie can be boring. Sometimes when you have conflicts, a negative goes into a positive from that situation, really.
Now, when you started your career on the stage, was the intention to be a stage actor, or did you always have your eye on film and TV?
Well, I didn't know. We went to New York to be a stage actor, to be on stage, to do that, and then eventually that led to, off Broadway. They pay you $37 a week, take-home pay. You go out to California, do a TV show, and come back, and then you'd stay extra time. The director would be looking all around for you. He couldn't find you, so you'd stay extra and maybe do other things and do another job. And from there, more theater, and then got into television. And once you finish television, you like to get into features. And then once you get settled in features, well, maybe I'll go back to television and do something special, because a lot of actors won't do television. Mm-hmm. And why not? It's all action and cut anyway, right? That's all it is. So, so why not? Some of my favorite things have been on television, really, more than just feature films.
When you were breaking in as an actor, did you have to take other jobs to survive?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
You always have to do that, yeah. I took a job, the best job I had was at the post office.
Really? You never hear that?
Yeah, and you put the letters in and everything, and you learn the scheme. It's like learning lines, and for the first time out of the Army, I had good money in my pocket. 6 months later, when I was still working at the post office, I said, I got to quit or I'll be here 20 years from now.
Really?
So I quit, and then started floundering more. But you got to take a stand sometimes.
We actually have a question from Brett C., who wants to know what got you through the lean times.
The lean times?
The lean times early on.
Well, friends, family, support, and like an actor once said to me, "What did you do when you were a young actor between jobs?" And my stock answer is hobbies, and more hobbies. It keeps you off of dope, You got to have things to take your time. Whether you play tennis. For instance, when I was in California and I lived in New York, I came out here to live for a while. Pickwick used to have rent stables. I'd take out a horse every day for $4 an hour, either bareback, English saddle, Western saddle. I ended up learning how to jump horses, did a little competition, so I'd have a good seat on a horse in a movie. Because many actors, they don't have good seats. And it was a good hobby to have. It's good to have hobbies, I think, And my parents supported me, whenever they could during those lean years, yeah. Because there are plenty of them.
Did you actually have the foresight were you riding horses thinking you might be in Westerns down the line? Really?
Absolutely.
Even then?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It was...
But because when I was 13 or 14 at the end of the Second World War, my uncle had a 40,000-acre ranch in northern Montana, so we went there during the summer months, and it kind of laid the foundation for me, wisdom-wise, to eventually play Westerns, which I like very much, with horsebacking. They had his greatest horseman was a cowboy from Scotland who came over, and you know, and taught us things and everything. You know, we pitch horseshoes every night, and we hang out with this guy, and there weren't enough women to go around, so he never got a wife. And he'd get drunk and profess love for my aunt. My uncle would say, "Okay, Jimmy, back off." You know. So you know, we that was kind of the laying of the foundation for doing westerns and wanting to know more about horses. You know, and I still, as a hobby, still do like horses. But where we live in Virginia, you speak with modesty when you say you're a horseman, because of the 4 gold medals we won in our history, or 5, 3 of the gold medalists live around there. So they're great horsemen in Virginia. So you got to speak with humility around there. But for my level, I'm okay, or was. They're not machines, and you got to be careful.
When was the last time you were on a horse?
I was in a horse about a month ago in Argentina, because I thought I had to ride a horse in a film I did in Texas recently, and it was so you know I had a wonderful horse. It was a stallion that had won 21 saddles. He had like 8 buttons. There was only one button that I needed, was a nice canter. I didn't want to do anything else on that horse because I couldn't do anything else. So you know you have to be very careful, because I've had some crack-ups.
You mentioned True Grit earlier. Yeah. How do you feel about films of yours being remade, seeing someone in the role you originated?
Well, it didn't bother me. I don't think True Grit originally was that good anyway.
Really?
When I say action, tense up, goddammit. That was that guy. And I had a little go around with that director myself. But John Wayne was wonderful, and by the time he did The Shootist, he was a brilliant actor in that. I mean,
yeah.
A brilliant actor in The Shootist. But you know, so I don't know why they did the sequel, but they did it, and I'm sure it'll be okay. They got some good people in there. I'm sure it'll be okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier the agent who turned down Hackman and Hoffman. Yeah. Was that your first agent?
Yeah, it was.
How did you get your first agent?
Through a play, I think. We did a series of plays. We did when I was too young, but I played the lead in View from the Bridge at the Gateway Summer Theater. I met Ulu Grossbard, the wonderful stage director, and we eventually did that off Broadway. But I think I had done a showcase, and then you know they sent people down, and Rose Tobias was a casting agent, and I got my first agent there. Yeah, I've had so many I can't even remember some of their names. You know?
Really, you have?
Yeah. I mean, some people stay with the same person, which is fine. But if you stay with somebody that don't get your work, then why stay with them? You know? I mean, you know, loyalty goes both ways. You know? Yeah.
But it seems like you've always worked, or
somewhat. They've been lean years. They've been lean times. Yeah. Now I'm trying to get, but it's hard to raise money now. I mean, it's easier to raise $100 million with a big name that they know might fail anyway than to raise $10 million or $10 million movies. It's harder to raise $10 million or less than $100 million. So we're trying to raise money now, and like you go to Texas, and if you do a religious movie or Texas Chainsaw Massacre #3, you can get money. Anything in between, you get hot air and bullshit. It's true.
You should do a religious chainsaw movie.
A what?
A religious chainsaw movie.
Well, okay.
Get it financed like that.
Right, could be, yeah.
That's what The Apostle was missing, a chainsaw.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just curious, what were those early days like when you were going out for roles? Was it a pretty standard audition process? And how were you at auditioning?
I was okay, I guess, as I remember. I remember one time that I tried out for a British play, and I didn't get the part, but I did a pretty good accent, and the guy was from England, and I did the audition on an empty stage in a Broadway play, which I didn't get it, and it went well, and the guy, he couldn't believe that I could do that. And then he had me come back, and then, that's terrific. Then he gave a part to somebody else anyway. So, but you know, I did okay. I mean, you know, I guess. It's been a while, so.
In the 50s and 60s, you did a lot of television.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you got your SAG card?
My SAG card?
Yeah.
Ooh. I wonder if these people all know how they remember how they got. I can't. It's been so long.
Really?
It's been a long time. Yeah.
So many memorable TV appearances, specifically the Twilight Zone episode
Right.
with the dollhouse. Did you have any idea when you were making that it was something special?
Kind of, but then it went into litigation for 20 years and they couldn't re-show it.
I heard that.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that the young lady that played opposite me ended up marrying Sidney Pollack.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was nice, and I stayed in a motel out by MGM. I was from New York, and I didn't know much about LA, so I'd stay home in that thing every night and study my part and go to work. It was a nice project, though.
What was the litigation about? Do you know?
I don't know. It was the Twilight Zone, and I don't know what it was about, but they didn't show it for like 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some of those early TV appearances, what do you remember about those? Were you kind of learning to act in front of the camera for the first time?
Sometimes, you had to try to find that balance, to find the right sense of energy. And then I talked to one guy, I forget the guy's name. He did an hour live show, and after 4 minutes, neither actor could remember the lines. So for 45, 50 minutes, they floundered. Now, that never happened to me, but sometimes you go up, each step is a learning process, definitely. There's not so much that live TV anymore, really. But they have episodic TV, but I've liked doing TV. I do some now if the part was right. A lot of guys are coming to TV now. Some actors will never go to TV. Why, I don't know. It's as I said before, it's all action and cut.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially in the 80s, I feel like now more and more film actors are going to TV. There's no barrier. But when you did Lonesome Dove, for example, that was not the case.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I did Lonesome Dove, when I finished, I really felt I'd done something special, and I said, I can retire now. But that's been a while, so I didn't retire. And I've done I took a thing out that I'd done recently. I did 20 years ago when I played Joseph Stalin, which was very different from Lonesome. And I felt that I did okay. I think the final scene with my daughter is as good as I can do, but it was a very different part to play in the Kremlin. We filmed there in the Kremlin. Wow. with those people. It was pretty interesting. But there have been some wonderful projects come my way and other people's way in television, so why not? Why not do television?
Do you have any trouble watching yourself on screen, or are you used to it at this point?
I usually watch once, maybe, and that's about it, And I work with some actors, after every take, they go back and watch the playback.
Wow.
I don't know. I have a feeling that if I feel it's good and I walk back to see it, I'm superstitious enough. I figure by the time I get back, it's bad. so I don't walk back. I get superstitious.
You made your film debut in 1962. You started off with an iconic role. This is as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right.
Sure.
Right. The great Horton Foote, the great writer Horton Foote. He and his wife Lillian came to see a play we did at the neighborhood playhouse, and Bill Esper, people are here that know Bill. He was stage manager, and we did a play called The Midnight Caller where I played a drunk and came on, and it was shut out by the woman that I loved, and they came, and I guess they liked what they saw. There was. Kim Stanley was there. She was in her heyday. Bob Mulligan was there. Horton Foote and his wife. So about 2 years later, when they cast To Kill a Mockingbird, Lillian Foote said to Horton, who wrote it, the adaptation, what about that young man we saw, play the drunk? So that helped me get that part, Horton Foote. And he was a great writer and a great friend for many years, Horton. Wonderful.
He actually once famously said of you that you are our #1 actor.
Well, that's because I did a lot of his plays and movies, so he's got to say something. Yeah, but I seemed to connect with his work and enjoyed it. I did about 4 or 5 of his movies, and then I always say that I did about 4 or 5 movies with Francis Coppola. Had I never done anything but those 2 guys, I would have had a wonderful small career doing those. Because, when I went to do To Kill a Mockingbird, I came at the end of the movie, the same as Boo Radley comes at the end of the book. He's really the Mockingbird. So I met Gregory Peck. He was a charming, gracious man. Horton Foote was always very supportive of the actors, and it was a wonderful experience, you know. And when I work with Horton and other things, you know, he'd sit under the camera, writing, action, cut. He'd go back to writing. He'd say, Horton, could I try something here? Maybe I'll change a little. He'd go, okay, go ahead, Bobby. And he'd write. And then, you know, he was great to work with. Horton was wonderful. And I saw his 9 hours of plays a year ago in New York. You could see all 9 hours in one day. There was brilliant plays, brilliant.
Were there any you hadn't seen before?
No, I hadn't seen them, but I'd read some. The movie we did, Convicts, they did, it was a play originally, so they did that. And when we did Get Low, the movie, I always told Horton, you should see this movie when we finish it. It's a lot like your writing. It's a Southern tale, and has a lot of the same things that you have in your movies, your plays. He was 93, and the day that I gave the speech to the first time we only did it once, onto the crowd. Now on comes the mule. The United States champion mule comes 20 miles from me in Virginia, not from Georgia. Gracie, she can do anything. I'll tell you about her in a minute. She brought on the coffin that I had built, so when I really die, I'm playing a guy that's going to his own funeral. My wife Luciana's off camera, and as I'm giving this speech about death and dying, she gets a phone call that Horton Foote just died. I mean, it was like she was like so eerie. It was like full cycle from To Kill a Mockingbird till then. So he was one of our great writers. And I met some young actors recently who are stage actors, good actors, who never heard of him, which is strange to me.
Yeah.
He's a great, great writer, one of our greats.
What was it like, because you worked with him from the 50s all the way up through at least the 80s, because Tender Mercies was 1983.
Right.
Did you see him change or grow as a writer, or was he always right out of the gates?
Yeah, I guess, He was always trying new things, and my wife did kind of a nice little documentary on him, and one of the shots of the documentary of Horton was in a theater up in New Haven, in the afternoon when nobody was around, writing. And she just held this camera on him for like 35 or 40 seconds. He was so deep into his writing. He was in another place completely. So that was it. That was his life, the writing, although he started out as an actor.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh yeah. And I think, starting out as an actor is good. To be a director or whatever, it's good. So an extension of yourself as an actor into another realm, so to speak.
For To Kill a Mockingbird, did you still have to audition for the director and
No.
go through? Really?
No, the director was there that night of this play,
Okay.
Bob Mulligan. So, that was, and then I'd done my first TV show for the Naked City, which helped solidify my getting the part. And I did it, and that did it. And after I did that part, I walked down the street, Fifth Avenue, the next day. Oh, I saw you on TV. Wow, what a feeling! Somebody saw me on TV. That was really nice. So those two things. But the director was there that night, Robert Mulligan. Yeah.
I just thought it was the power of Horton Foote saying you're going to cast this guy. I've never heard of a screenwriter having that kind of power.
Well, I'm sure they collaborated. I'm sure they listened to Horton because he made the adaptation from the book. And when I went to do the movie, I lived on West End and 83rd, I think it was. And I went in the mailbox. There was a telegram from Harper Lee, who wrote the book. Said, "Hey there, boo." That was it. Yeah, it was nice, and I went out,
Please tell me you saved that.
No. I'm so bad with organization. I really am. My wife's pretty good. I might have it somewhere, but I don't know.
Let's just pretend you do.
I hope I do. Yeah. Yeah.
After To Kill a Mockingbird, you continued to appear in these amazing films. True Grit, you mentioned, of course, MASH. At what point did you really feel secure as an actor, like you'd made it?
That's a continuous thing. I mean, you never really feel, It took a while, I guess, to get that sense of relaxation, The older you get, these people are actors. They know. I think that I've come to the conclusion now that you can start with zero in a scene and end with zero. You let the process take you to the result rather than going to the result. So you can just, I mean, a lot of people, you get backstage, they get into the emotion, you know, but I think that you just, sometimes if you come in with nothing and just see where it goes, like life, then if something good happens, something that's really valid, because you allowed yourself to not push it, then you could be rewarded around the corner by something else very valid. If you don't violate by pushing, I think. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know, just when I did The Chase with Brando, he was always talking, you know, Brando. Action, cut, go back to talk. It was all the same. There didn't seem to be a beginning. He was that much in touch with himself, you know. I remember one time when we were doing The Chase, he had a way of looking up. He'd look up, and I looked up after him, you know. But he was. No, I learned that though. I mean, try to minimize a sense of a beginning. Now I have to begin. Now it's in. It's all one thing, really.
Actually, I want to ask you about your process, especially in those early years. How did you choose your roles, and how did you approach a character? Were you big on research, or? Well,
yeah, somewhat. Yeah, I mean, you know, you feel so good to be offered a part to begin with, and it was a part that you really. I always look at the wow factor. I mean, I don't know about food critics. I mean, about critics of any kind. I don't usually read them. But if you bite into a really good steak or a good hamburger, you don't. All you say is wow. That's it. So if you get a part, you know, that's great, it falls in the wow syndrome. You know, I really want to do this. It makes you feel good to do it. Then you want to know about the whole piece, who's the director and everything. So it's, you know, you feel fortunate enough to be working anyway. If it's the part that really, you know, you really respond to it, then that's an added bonus right in the beginning, really. You know. Some parts you have to work harder than others, obviously, and research is good. But you know, like when I did Lonesome Dove, which was my favorite part that I've ever done, probably, was you know, I rode horses constantly, jumping horses, all kinds of horses, you know. And I hadn't been on a horse home, but I really went down and got with Rodney Jenkins, the great rider, one of our greatest jumping horse riders, and then for whatever reason. About 2 weeks before we started, I loved to drive, especially in the West, around Texas with the open skies. A friend of mine had played with the Houston Oilers, and we went way out in a place called Rotan, Texas. Boy, it was ugly, I'm telling you. Really way out. And there was Sammy Ball, the old great quarterback for the Washington Redskins that my father had taken us to see when we were kids. He's retired. He was like a Texas Ranger. He was 70 years old. And he began to talk in a certain way about, he didn't know who I was. It took him 8 years to know who I was. So then, you know, the way he talked with his hands, how he threw the ball, and everything, I said, that's it. I incorporated that in the character. That was kind of a research that I wasn't even knowing that I was looking for. But it was something that I found that immediately became like second nature to me. So, you know, you do certain kind of research, you know, it helps. But once you start, you try to throw it all away and just go with the moment, really.
Have you ever had a situation where maybe you didn't have the wow factor on the page or when you were filming, but you saw the completed product and you were like, it was even better than you expected?
Yeah, I've turned down things, and then sometimes you'd go back to get it, and you say, why did I turn this down? And it turns out okay. Yeah.
I want to talk about some of your films from the 70s, beginning with you playing the title role in George Lucas's first feature film, I should say, THX 1138. Can you talk about how that project came to you and what it was like working with George Lucas before he was George Lucas of Star Wars?
Right. Well, we were doing a film. Coppola was doing a film called The Rain People with Jimmy Caan, and I knew Jimmy a little bit, and we've been friends till now. My best friend in the business. I'll be with him tomorrow night. He's crazy. Brando loved working with Jimmy because he was so funny. So there was another actor that they had a misunderstanding, so they got rid of him or he quit, whatever, and they called me in Nebraska to play this motorcycle cop. I was terrible with a motorcycle. I had to learn and drive it. And Jimmy still talks about how I drive up with a girl in the back, get off, walk in. I do it 8 times. I couldn't do it. And the 9th time I did, I walk in this cop uniform, and the bike falls over. Or, in that scene, he has a daughter. I play a cop, and the daughter gets the gun, and because he's gonna beat me up, and she comes out, and he has me up like he's gonna throw me, and she shoots him. So now he says, well, now I don't want to drop Bobby on the ground. We'll put a mattress here so he'll have a nice, easy fall. So they said, action. The little girl comes out, shoots him, and he deliberately goes away from the mattress and throws me on the ground anyway. So it's great working with Jimmy, but that's in Nebraska there, and that's when that's when I met Coppola, and Jimmy and all. And what was the question now?
Just working with George Lucas before George Lucas.
I forgot. He was doing a documentary. Here's a skinny little guy, 25 years old, with a camera and a sound thing, what do you go, navigator here, and he's walking around. He's so skinny, and he's shooting this documentary on the movie. And don't tell Coppola, but it might have been better than the movie itself. It was terrific. And from there, I got to know George, and then they asked would I try out for THX 1138, which had been his student film. Right. Now he expanded it into a feature film, and it was like he was working 25 years in the right way when he did his first film. He was that sophisticated in filmmaking at an early age. He used 2 cameras. He used like a Super 16. He split the film in some strange way. It was wonderful the way he worked, so, and he's gone on to great things, yeah.
Did he ever talk to you about Star Wars?
What do you mean?
Either auditioning for it or...
No, I never came up. No.
Really?
No.
I could see you as Han Solo.
I never saw it.
You never... Whoa! Any of them?
Maybe, but I can't remember. It's been a while. Yeah.
You mentioned Francis Ford Coppola, who you obviously paired with several times, beginning, I think, was your first film together, The Godfather?
No.
You did Rain People.
Rain People, and then Godfather 1, yeah.
So did you have an in on The Godfather? Because I know every actor wanted to be in this movie.
What happened was, we were hanging around San Francisco. We went up there, Jimmy Caan, myself, there was Al Pacino, and I don't know if it was anybody else there, but he just did an informal, for fun, screen test of us. Oh, you play this, but I played the lawyer, Jimmy, and so then when they cast the movie eventually, and they got it back to what he wanted, they had spent $80,000, which was a lot then, on screen tests on other actors, but it got back to what he wanted anyway. Really? So it was like a fun process. I mean, he's always saying, "Come on, guys, we got to be serious now. Quit fooling around." We'd always playing jokes, like every day, like with Brando. After one day, we're driving down 3rd Avenue, and Brando's always looking bored, And Jimmy's driving. He's got these big shoulders and a skinny little ass like this, Jimmy. So I said, "No, you moon him. You go ahead." So he drops Brando. He moons him, and Brando goes, "Oh," like he always fit. And if Jimmy would tell Brando a joke, he'd have to count to 3 before Brando would get it. Yeah. But it was great working on that, especially the one. The second one was good. Without Jimmy, it wasn't as much fun. But the first one was great. But then the second one, Jimmy came on a 1 day's work.
That's right.
And we went down and had a Paramount, I guess it was, and we ate at a Hungarian restaurant, the hottest peppers we've ever had in our life. So I see Jimmy going like this, cutting into one of these pita bread and putting this thing in it, because they said, "You guys hurry up, you're late back for lunch." And he puts it like this, Jimmy's got those shoulders anyway, and he goes in like this, and Francis comes out of his trailer and just reaches, because we know Frank bites into it, his eyes. He cursed us. But you know, with Jimmy, you know, it spices things up with him.
You play consigliere.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I said it right. Tom Hayden in that film. Was that the only role that you went out for? Was it always going to be the part?
That was it. Yeah, that's enough. That was a great part.
Oh, that's a fantastic
liked
part.
it. Yeah, because as an actor, I couldn't step over, and as the adopted was a stepchild, you couldn't step over. You always had to maintain that balance with the family. You'd never be really included. Yeah.
You also worked with Coppola again, obviously, in Godfather 2 and The Conversation. Great film. And you got to speak one of the most iconic lines in film history in Apocalypse Now.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it because that would I couldn't even do it justice.
Yeah. That was a great project. I was working in the Philippines. You know, you get recognized all over the place, and so I was. We were way out in the middle of nowhere. It was great. We'd live with the people and take cold showers. It was very primitive, but very nice, you know. And people would come up. It was like World War II. They'd say, hey, Joe. They were still living in a time war. A guy comes up to me, Mr. Hackman. I love your movies. I love Popeye Doyle, French Connect. I said, well, no, I'm Robert Duvall. Oh, you're my favorite actor. So we were way out there. Yeah. We had a good time, though. Yeah, Francis, he threw more temper tantrums than the actors because all the helicopters we were supposed to get each day, maybe 15, maybe we'd get 4, and the rest would go down to a pending revolution in southern Mindanao, and he'd break surfboards with his feet, he'd curse, you know. But, you know, it was pretty interesting, and I take my hat off to him again to get that finished the way he did. In Godfather 1, there was a standby director on the set whose best friend was the first AD in case Coppola failed and had to be fired.
Wow.
Now, he worked under that pressure. I gained a lot of respect for him because, you know, Paramount took all this. He was the one. It was his vision. He could have made it on the street with a video camera as long as he, you know, was at the helm, really. So I gained a lot of respect for him. I really did. And he's the only director that's ever come out of the rushes like with a long face. Someday I'd like to write a book called The Rushes Are Great because the rushes are always great. The movies are never as great as the rushes, really, you know. So he would come out with a long face knowing he had to really search and dig, and which he did, you know. He was always wanting to do better, you know.
Were you aware, I think probably a lot of us have seen Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now. Were you aware things were that bad?
Well, I worked for 6 weeks and then went away for 6 months and came back for 3 more weeks. So I missed a lot of that. You know, it took forever to do that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, they had a lot of problems with. Marty Sheen had a heart attack. They were like, and Dennis Hopper was always out of it, always, you know, and there was so much going on, and you know, typhoons destroying things. You know, it's like. It was quite an ordeal that Francis pulled that off because Brando would show up in the middle of the jungle with his baby blue Mercedes, you know, drive down and have his lines piped into his, you know, like. And the second go around when they recut it, he was much better. Yeah. I mean, they picked greater stuff that he had done so many wonderful things, you know. So I think the reduct was a little better, really.
So your infamous line about napalm in the morning, was that always done one way, or do you recall?
I forget the line. What is it now?
Please, no.
No. Well, there was a guy called Jimmy Keene. That's Jimmy Kahn and Jimmy Keene. He's a friend of mine from Buffalo. And so he said, I made him call me Mr. Duvall till the end because he played my tail gunner. So till the very end, you know, for the relationship. You know, he only had one line, like, and so I said, Mr. Duvall, I like to watch you work. And he got right out there watching. I said, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory. I did Brando. Now he did Brando. Everybody was doing Brando. And when Brando wanted $100,000 to do 6 censored lines on Godfather 1, they got Jimmy Keene from Buffalo, New York, to do it for $200. So that was it. So No, it was a line that, it's kind of a pretty famous line, I guess, Like, when I was doing research on the Apostle with all these preachers all over America, they all claim they don't go to movies. So this guy said, I don't go to movies, but I heard Robert Duvall had a famous line. It went something like, I love the smell of gasoline in the morning.
Would you ever have people come up and do you for you, imitate that line?
Dusty Hoffman, Jimmy Caan, Jimmy Keane, Mark Wahlberg.
Okay, that last one's pretty random, actually.
Yeah.
Who was the best?
I don't know, different ones. Jimmy Keane's pretty good.
Yeah.
This guy who did Brando, yeah.
Another film you made in the 70s, which I just happened to catch the other night, was on TV again, is Network. Which seems so prescient in today's day and age, that film.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, it was fun doing it. We I'm not big on rehearsal. I don't know about you all. I'd rather just take one as a rehearsal than you do take two. So, but Sidney Lumet likes to rehearse. It was okay. So we rehearsed for 2 weeks and did it, and it was nice because Patty Chayefsky was there. It was kind of historic, and I love working with Bill Holden. Whenever a girl would come on a set, his antenna would go up. He loved the way. He was a great guy, man. Great guy. So we had fun. You always look to have fun on a set. You got to. It keeps people relaxed,
In the 70s, you also went back to the New York stage and did David Mamet's American Buffalo.
Yeah, right. Ulu Grossbard, wonderful director. Ulu Grossbard, yeah.
What drew you to that project?
Well, he wanted me to come do it, like that. And I don't read reviews, and because I'm superstitious. But that and I guess Lonesome Dove were my two best things, I guess. Yeah. But it was nice working with Ulu. It was great, great work on him. He's a wonderful director, wonderful human being, Yeah. So it was a good experience. It was such rough language. I wouldn't even invite my parents though. Like I remember one night some woman says, I can't stand this play. It's terrible. I want my money back. It's to get this fucking worst language I've ever heard. So they gave her her money back.
Were you familiar with David Mamet? Because he wasn't really established at that point.
Not so much. He was at rehearsal, He wrote the pauses, and we said, hey, let us do the pause. He wrote everything in. But, it was interesting working, yeah.
I could be wrong about this, but was that the last time you were on the New York stage?
Yes. That's the last time I've been on any stage, except here, right? I mean, it was a long time ago, but I guess if movies went out the window, I could go back to the stage. Or but I like to go on movies. You go to location, you meet people, you travel, and you don't have to do it 8 times a week, I mean,
Did you know at the time that this was sort of your swan song for theater?
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, maybe, yeah.
It didn't scare you off from theater, did it?
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much, that part, yeah.
I want to take us to the 80s now, beginning... And I have to start with 1983's Tender Mercies. You took the role of alcoholic country singer Max Sledge, written by your friend Horton Foote. Was that what drew you to the project, or are you ever going to turn down a Horton Foote script?
How do you mean, turn him down?
Did you do the film because he wrote it, or was it a combination of factors?
Combination. He had written it before I read it, and I liked it very much, and we went ahead and did it. Yeah, it was a wonderful part, and I like working in Texas a lot. It's changed a little bit, Texas, but back then, the more small towns in Texas than any place in the world. Each one's different. Each one has a country band. Each one has a good barbecue. That's important. The best barbecue in the world may be from Texas, with a close second in Argentina, maybe. But but it was great, and I prepared for that because I'd always liked country. I had an apartment in New York I should have never sold, at 86 and Broadway, 25-foot ceiling. It belonged to Caruso. And I bought another farm in Virginia, and I didn't feel I could afford it. I sold the thing in 6 minutes. If I'd have kept it, I could have really made it full. But, it was an opera building, and both my brothers were opera singers, but I always liked country music. You know, ha, ha, ha. You'd hear these people warming up from the Metropolitan, and I'd be paying Lefty Frizzell down in my apartment. And the people would say, would you please turn that off? I said, no. So, you know, I always liked country music, and when I went down to do it in Texas, there was a place called Italy, Texas, that was a wonderful band there, and I'd get up on the weekends and sing with the band while the people would two-step around. It's a good sense of feeling, you know, to see people, hopefully not too many fights, people doing the two-step and the waltz. It was great. Yeah, that's the way I got, you know, ready for the part, really, you know.
I heard somewhere, and I don't know if this is true or not, so I'll ask you, that you had it written into your contract that you had to perform the songs?
Absolutely. You know, and they were thinking otherwise, I know. Well, I don't know. You know, they think of, you know, if I'm gonna ride a horse, if I'm gonna do a dance, I did the two-step in that, or if I'm gonna sing, I want to do my own. Mm-hmm. Why not? You know, that's what acting's about, to gain knowledge in different areas, really.
I can't imagine, did they want to dub you with someone, or?
Who knows? You never know. I mean, we didn't let him get that far. My brother was my lawyer, and he protected me. Yeah.
Really?
And how?
It's nice to have that in the family.
You bet. Especially when he threatened to throw the producer out the window.
He's a tough lawyer. Why were they so resistant to it?
I don't know. I mean, you know, everybody has to do things by the numbers, mm-hmm. You know, not just Hollywood, but, you know, filmmaking, you know, and once again, you got to turn it around and let it come from the subject, you know, you got to let the actor do what he does, you know, really.
Were you aware when you were making that film that it was something special?
Well, it was special to me. I didn't know if it would be special to other people. I didn't know that. The only time I felt I was fortunate enough to be in the two big things in the last part of the 20th century, Godfather 1 and 2 and Lonesome Dove. And although The Godfather was the best directed of any of them. But when we did halfway through The Godfather 1, I knew we had done something kind of special. And when we were doing Lonesome Dove, I walked into the dressing room. I said, boys, we're making The Godfather of Westerns, you know. And, you know, that was so, both of those were great to be in, and I appreciated being in them.
Have you ever had that feeling and then seen the final product and felt maybe it didn't live up to what you wanted?
Could be, yeah, I'm sure. I can't quite remember which ones. Yeah, I'm sure yeah, exactly.
So Tender Mercies brought you your first Oscar. My
only Oscar, and that's enough. I mean, how many do you need? Great.
You'd had several nominations before then. What's it like from the point of view of not hearing your name called and then hearing your name called?
Man, it's like a double thing. You want to hear your name called, but you're petrified. And I was up against 4 Englishmen.
That's right, you were.
But here was Dolly Parton. And as soon as she said the winner is, I knew it was me. Because, you know, she was a country western singer, and I knew you. And I got up, I said what I had to say, and then I had to rush for the urinal so fast. I mean, you're sitting there for 4.5 hours. I mean, it's excruciating. Yeah. But it was a great feeling. It was nice, yeah.
At that point, you were already so established. It seems silly to ask, but did winning the Oscar change anything for you, career-wise?
Not much.
Yeah.
A little bit more recognition in airports. That's about it. Yeah. Because, you know, I thought it would help me get my film, The Apostle, off the ground. It did not.
Even then, you were working on The Apostle?
Yeah, I tried. Yeah, it was years later that I got, you know, that it came to be. But there's always a reason why things don't happen. Mm-hmm. I think for the most part, it's better when they do happen.
Silly question, where do you keep your Oscar?
I keep it on my mantle in our farm in Virginia where we live, and it faces a letter I got from Brando.
Really?
And I almost like the letter from Brando better than the Oscar. Because, you know, when we were young, Gene Hackman and myself and Dustin, we would go to Cromwell's drugstore in New York City at least 3-4 times a week. And if we mentioned his name once, we mentioned it 25 times, Brando, because he was kind of like the guy, you know, for all the young actors, really, you know. Brando, he was. So the letter means a lot to me.
Are you willing to reveal what it's about?
I am not.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it was very nice, yeah. I'd sent him a copy of The Apostle. He liked it, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You've mentioned several times Lonesome Dove, where you played former Texas Ranger peace officer Gus McCrae. Such a landmark miniseries in so many ways. And as you mentioned, it was unusual for film stars to be doing television. What made that project so special for you?
The book. Thank God. My ex-wife, one of them, all my exes do not live in Texas. But she said, Bobby, I read a book that I like better than Dostoevsky, the great novel. And she said, don't let them talk you into playing, you have to play Augustus McCrae, because they had offered me the other part. And to this day, McMurtry still says we should have switched parts.
Really?
He's wrong. He's dead wrong. And I said, okay. There was another actor that my agent handled and said, well, if you can talk him out of playing Augustus McCrae. So he called back 4 hours later. He said he's got a bad back. He can't be on a horse for 16 weeks. So I said, go after that part. It just was a great part. It just was a great part. I said, let the English play Hamlet and King Lear. I'll play Augustus McCrae. That's my part, you know. I love that part.
Is that the last time you can remember really fighting for a role?
I didn't really fight for it. I just kind of, you know, spoke up. Yeah, but stood my ground. Yeah. But I felt the thing we did in Canada was just as well directed, although maybe not quite as popular, with the 5 Chinese girls, a horse drive rather than a cattle drive. That was a Western we did about 4 years ago that I liked very much. Broken Trail. That was a nice.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a nice film. So Westerns are great to do. Mm-hmm. You know, let the English play Hamlet and King Lear, the French Moliere, the Russians Chekhov. You know, we'll play. The Western is ours.
What's so special about Westerns?
I don't know. It's our part of our heritage. Mm-hmm. You try to do it as realistic as possible, but they say the hardest part for any given cowboy in a day's work was to get a good night's sleep on the hard ground, and that's hard to portray in a film. You know, that sense of discomfort. But it's part of our heritage, the Western. And when you go to Europe and England and different places, they all want to know about the West. They always want to know about. And if you go to Europe, or if you're in Europe and somebody says, "Where are you from?" "I'm from the United States." They say to this guy, "Where are you from?" I say, "I'm from Texas." You know, like it's like a separate country almost.
Out of curiosity, because I mentioned earlier that it seems like you've always worked and you've always had these iconic roles. Was there ever a time in your career where you got frustrated, you felt like you weren't getting the kind of roles you wanted?
Well, no, you always like to get, I was always grateful to work, obviously, but, and you can only get so many, parts like that, but, you're always looking. And the older I get, there was a line in Lonesome Dove, the older the violin, the sweeter the music. I'm getting offers now as good or better than ever.
Really?
But the money, it's not there.
To make the movie?
Yeah, to make them. I'm supposed to work with Terry Gilliam.
You're supposed to do Don Quixote, aren't you?
Play Don Quixote, yeah. Because he had seen me play a Cuban barber in a movie with Richard Harris, and he liked that. Had I never done that, he wouldn't have offered me the part. So he said a year ago, don't take anything, we're ready to go. So I'm ready, still waiting. And they're good parts being. I mean, Billy Bob Thornton has he and his partner have written a script about the Deep South that puts Tennessee Williams in the back seat.
Wow.
It is so good. It is so brilliant, this guy. Billy Bob, what a character he is. Yeah, what a character.
And can that film not get financed either?
Well, when he goes to my manager about money, he's hard up. But they're looking. And there's another one in Texas that Bill Whitliff wrote, an interesting character, like a latter-day guy from Lonesome Dove, an original script that's been around, and a great French director, wants to direct it. So I guess better a talented guy from Paris than a hack from Dallas, I suppose you might say. So once again, the money.
Which actually brings us to The Apostle, a film you wrote, directed, starred in, probably did craft services.
Almost. No, I financed. The film, not craft service.
You've been trying to tell this story for almost 2 decades, I guess.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for it come from?
I was doing an off-Broadway play called The Days and Nights of B.B. Fenstermaker, a wonderful play by Bill Snyder, and I was traveling. And you don't have to do this stuff. I mean, I'm not kind of a method actor, you have to do this, but I got off the plane, I wanted to see what Hughes, Arkansas was like, with a character. So I went back, and just to see, you know, I played a guy from Hughes, Arkansas. And I went to this town, and all the stores were owned and run by Chinese in Arkansas. They were the most prosperous of the three races, I felt, and there was no place to sleep. So these guys from Louisiana were highway, you know, construction workers that let me sleep in with them, and the sheriff was giving me a dirty look as I walked out in the streets, and I didn't know where I was, in the middle of nowhere. So I wandered down the street, and there was a little white church, and I went in, and there was a woman preacher, a guy on a guitar, and I'd never seen anything like that. A woman preaching in that cadence, the way they do the Pentecostals. So I said, I'd really like to do this someday. So it took me years and years and years until I finally, you know, got it off the ground.
Had you always been writing? And I know you had sort of directed some shorts. You'd been behind the camera before.
Not too much.
Yeah.
Not too much.
But it was something you were always interested in?
Just certain things that I could kind of build from the ground up. I mean, I was offered maybe to do a film out. I'd be a little hesitant to do a film out here because something that I didn't start from the ground up, either with the Gypsies I did or with the Pentecostal, with the Tango movie. And I originally did a movie with the Peterson family in the western Nebraska, kind of a crazy Wild West family that I did a film on. That when I showed it to John Cassavetes, he really liked it. I said, wow, it's great, you know. So I've done maybe 4 or 5 things, but only something I want to do from the ground up, you know, from the ground up. I had a wonderful script about the border, and it's not going to go. So I know some of these sheriffs down there, they're great guys. I'm going to sit down with a tape recorder and try to do a modest film, you know, with these guys. They're interesting guys. The 12 border sheriffs in Texas I'm talking about. Interesting guys. All their grandparents come from Mexico, but they want to uphold the law. Great guys. As a matter of fact, that doesn't make sense, but I'm even telling this, but the guy on the ski that got shot recently, you know, we're taking pictures. My friend is the sheriff of that county. So they know what happened to the guy. The woman came back. So my friend, the sheriff, says, I have a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend who knows the drug lord who said they burned the body.
Wow.
So that's not on TV, but that's what happened. He's a great guy. So I didn't get that project off the ground, so I'm going to try to do my own maybe a little bit.
Was The Apostle the first time you'd written a full-length screenplay?
I guess, yeah. I wrote the Gypsy thing, but we didn't use it because the Gypsies can't read or write. So it's all it's all improvised. And we had one actor that could improvise, and he was able to improvise with the Gypsies, you know. But I guess, yeah, it was the first one I've written. I've only written a couple.
And they've all gotten made except for...
Yeah.
That's a pretty good track record.
Yeah.
So what was it like directing yourself?
Well, Jimmy Kahn laughed, you know, I was going to put up a full-length mirror so I could yell at the director anytime I wanted. But I didn't. I mean, when you work with a director and you do a couple of takes, and the director's out there, you say, what do you think? I think, well, okay, it's okay, let's move on. You don't necessarily need a guy out there because you would be saying that to anybody anyway if he was there. So it was okay. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, I hear, you know, they say to direct is so tiring, but to do both, it's impossible. I loved it.
Really?
It was better than if somebody knocks on its trailer and say, come do your part. Because I wouldn't always watch the dailies. I'd wait till a few weeks later. We went out at night, and it was all fun. We relaxed, and it was really a nice experience.
What finally got the film made after so many years?
My CPA called me up, who was very conservative, and said, I think you have enough money to do this. So I did it myself. And when we finished, I got my money back plus change, but that was it. If I'd been hired to do the similar part in Hollywood, which they wouldn't have got it right anyway, they would have paid me a lot of money. But you know, I wanted to do it my way because you cannot patronize these people.
Right.
I once had a guy in New York drive me in a car service, And he said, when I was in the South in the service, in the Army, in the backwoods of the creeks way down the deep South, he said, those guys in the Army constantly outscored the New Yorkers on the aptitude tests.
Really?
Interesting. So you can't patronize these people. You got to try to give them their due, even though you don't necessarily have to agree with everything they believe in.
Was there any improvisation in that film? Because,
Which one?
In The Apostle?
Yes, I say, somebody give me an amen. Right. And they give me an amen and give me time to think of something to come up with, you know. But we did some, but we scripted it, and not so much. Some. Yeah. I like to improvise, but you know, sometimes improvisation can be a bit indulgent. So you got to stay within. If the script's good, like you know, with Lonesome Dove, and even with Get Low recently, the script was so well written, you didn't have to improvise because the script just carried you along, really. But
after waiting so long, it must have felt great when you not only won the Independent Spirit Award, but were nominated for an Oscar for The Apostle, and you made your money back.
Yeah.
But it could have gone another way.
Absolutely. And they grossed a lot of money, not for me, but for the company. That was okay, you know. I was glad the film could get out there, you know, because I heard that Billy Graham liked the movie a lot.
Really?
And Brando liked it a lot. So I got it from the religious, and I got it from the secular. So I felt good about that.
Oh, that's great. You also directed 2002's Assassination Tango.
Yes.
Combining your two great loves, well, three, because your wife was in it with you.
She stole the show. She kept letting me know about that too.
Oh, really?
She was great. She was great in it. I mean, she was so good, some of the producers wanted to cut her out.
What?
It made no sense to me. She was that good in it. She was that, you know, she worked hard. She thought I was going to put this other young woman from Argentina in the movie. She said, if you think she's going to play the part, I'll play the part. So she trained for a year in dancing, and, you know, we improvised on the corner, and we would improvise in the movie. And her 2-year-old niece played her 2-year-old daughter, whom she loved. So that was a solidifying thing for her, for that character, to have that daughter. Mm-hmm. But it was great working in Argentina, you know, because they're very talented. They have great cameramen, and I had a great handheld guy from Brazil, and half the time I didn't know what I was doing, so I said, "Just follow me," and he'd follow. You know, he was so quick with the camera, and the main guy was he lights the Teatro Colón, one of the biggest theaters in the world for ballet and opera. The guy was so fast. We set a scene. I say, okay, call me when you're ready. Literally, as I picked up my tea, they'd be ready. I never saw a guy so, and a good thing. And he talked like, habla, ¿cómo está? He talked real high, this guy. And the second day, though, they filmed the whole scene of a tango thing, slow motion, without consulting with me. I was the director. I said, in the United States, you'd all be fired. But there's a rule down there, you can't fire anybody.
What?
So,
really?
You know, you can't. So, but they straightened out. It was the AD, it was his fault. But no, it worked out well. It was great working there. Good actors. Mm-hmm. Darín, wonderful actor. Ricardo Darín he wasn't in our movie, but he's a world-class actor. And they have good actors and good crews. We had 2 cinematographers working on it at once. So it was nice. And, you know, and I find, you know, and not to take jobs away from actors, but once a non-actor crosses a line and decides they want to do it, they have no bad habits, sometimes they can put the professional actor on notice. Mm-hmm. So they'll know how to sit in a tango parlor with a cigarette or a drink that an actor won't necessarily have to do that. So some of the supporting parts we gave to the real tango people, you know.
In both your films, how involved were you in the casting?
Oh.
Completely.
Oh yeah, very much. You have a casting person, but mm-hmm. you know you're right on top of that, because that's so important. That really 80% of it, directing, is having good actors, you know.
And what were you looking for when actors would come into that room to audition?
A sense of truth, a sense of being so in touch with themselves in a relaxed way that you say, hey, maybe these guys. Because when I did The Apostle, I don't know what made me think of Billy Joe Shavers, the country singer. So I sent him the script. He sent it back. It was like he wasn't acting. He never acted before. So he was so natural And the second day he comes out, he said, hell, I got this deal licked, he said. You know, I mean, he was so natural, he was so good. So, you know, I mean, you don't want to take jobs away from actors, but because if you do, you got to pay a fine to the Screen Actors Guild anyway, which I'll pay if it's necessary, you know.
You mentioned having that relaxation in an audition situation in front of the camera, but it is sort of unnatural and nerve-wracking. How do you get to that point where you are comfortable?
Well, I think, you know, I mean, when I was younger, I had to kind of fight through to get an emotional thing that freed me. Mm. You know, you do a naked city, you do the second day, you do an emotional scene, and that would get you loose to do the rest of it. But, you know, as I got older, I mean, I can find I could be a little more relaxed, you know, and, you know, just try to just start with nothing and let the process take you to the result rather than going to the result.
Now, you haven't directed a film since Assassination Tango.
No, I wanted to direct this border film, but it's not going to happen.
So it's not from lack of trying?
No, it's just people, they don't do 2 nights television anymore, and maybe there's a reason for that, because it's pretty dangerous. That border is dangerous.
Yeah.
It really is dangerous.
And you've worked with so many amazing directors. What is it that you think makes a good director? Well,
you know, actors, when you say, what's it like to work with that director? Well, he leaves you alone. You know, that's the thing. You want to be left alone. You want to be supported. You want to consult and talk about it, but you don't want somebody like I could work with directors recently, like they look like this, like you know, it's like, as opposed to, hey man, let's try something else. You know, let's try take 2. You know, but a guy like this, you know, it's like, you know, it's like you should make the movie before you make it. That's what they say, but you shouldn't necessarily have it so choreographed in your head, some of these directors, that they think they have every beat worked out, which is bad. They got to leave it loose for the actor to come up with something. Otherwise, hire somebody else, you know.
Mm-hmm. Out of curiosity, do you remember the last time you had to audition for a role?
It's been a while. I mean, I'm not as young as most of these kids here. You know, I mean, these young people, but it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
How do you choose your roles now? Has it changed from?
No, your first instinct, I like to try that. Maybe you can do something a little different. It might be similar to something else, but maybe I can do something a little different than I did before. It might be nice to work with that director. You know, I mean, you know, I don't get as many offers as some people, but I get enough. You know, I mean, and once again, the things I want to do for myself. Now it's difficult to raise the money. It's difficult. Mm-hmm.
You've played a number of real people in your career. You mentioned Stalin earlier. Yeah. You've also played Dwight D. Eisenhower. Yeah. In Newsies, you were Joseph Pulitzer.
Well, that's a good young actor, that kid. This kid is terrific in the
Christian
Bale.
Fight.
Oh, is he good in the fight? He's so good, that guy.
Could you tell when he was like 14?
Yeah, he was a real serious guy. You know,
even then.
Way back. Yeah, he was. But no, when I played Eisenhower, God, the guy had directed the Three Stooges. I'm serious. Now we got on there, and the first day, Jimmy Kahn, he loves to tell a story. He says, "Cut! It's not on the beaches of France, Robert. It's of the beaches of France." I said, "Okay." So finally, this and that, I quit. And trade paper said, "Ike takes a hike." I quit.
You did.
Then I went back and finished it, but that was really a tough shoot. It was, because then they brought another director in, and. It's tough to play those series sometimes, because you end up acting history in some parts of the script as opposed to a more condensed version of a script in the filming process, you know. But it went okay. But I played Eichmann when I did Eichmann for the capturing of Eichmann and for Turner Classics. When the thing was over, 2 days later, the real Eichmann they sent back to Israel, and they executed him. Mm-hmm. This Eichmann met my wife two days later. That's what this Eichmann got a wonderful wife. Yeah. But I think, you know, I went back to watch Stalin recently, and I think I did okay, because Andrei Konchalovsky's father, which is also The other son is the other director, the other Russian guy, Andrei Konchalovsky. The father had worked 8 times under Stalin as his poet, wrote their national anthem, and he said our production was okay and that I did okay.
Wow.
So that's the best review I've ever gotten in my life, when he said I touched the soul of Stalin. So that's better than getting the New York Times or anything, you know what I mean? It was okay. It was tough. It was tough shoot.
Is it easier or more challenging when you're playing someone who actually existed and you can go back and read about, see footage of? And how beholden are you to the truth versus just creating a character?
How do you mean the truth what now?
Well, how obligated are you to tell the truth exactly what happened?
Well, you don't know. You don't know exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
What I tried to do, even when I played Stalin, I tried to make the fact that the guy had a vulnerability. The wife that committed suicide, that he said, cover her up and take her away. 10 years later, 15 years later, the emotion hit him of what she really meant to him. So I tried to find, did that really happen in life? I don't know. Mm-hmm. It might have. So I think you have to find the contradictions in a character, and I always try to find the vulnerability or the other side of a guy, even if he's supposedly a bad guy, because he doesn't think he's a bad guy as himself, you know. So you have to try to find different colors, really, different things.
I want to go back to Ike for a second. Was that the first time you quit a film?
That was about the only time, but I went back. I was a chicken. I went back. Yeah. I would have probably had a big lawsuit. You know.
Oh, is that why you went back?
Partially, probably.
Have you ever been fired from a role?
Yes.
Really?
One time. I was in a play that Gore Vidal wrote. Strange guy. He's not an icon in my book. I call him like a super dilettante. But anyway, he wrote a play and with Cyril Richard, and I was okay in it, but they fired me. I don't know why. The guy thought I was really coming after him in the play, which I really wasn't. Mm-hmm. But the last night they said, would you be in the play till we find a replacement? I said no. So I did one more show, and that guy really thought I was coming after him that night. The guy that had me fired.
Is that why?
That's the only time I've ever been fired. Mm-hmm. A Broadway play, yeah.
That's actually pretty good odds for
guess,
all the roles you've played. I want to talk about Get Low,
right,
which came out earlier this year.
I
did. Speaking of true characters, this was based on a true story.
Yes, somewhat, yes, and it was fictionalized, mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
It's more of like a legend, isn't it?
Yeah,
about this guy?
A tale, a southern tale, yeah.
So how did this script find its way to you?
Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, they approached me, and I liked it. Anybody that would set up and go to his own funeral is a very interesting premise. But they couldn't get the money. Once again, I said, if Dean Zanuck and Dick Zanuck, the Zanuck dynasty, can't raise $7 million, who can? So, you know what, when I'd be visiting the West Coast, I'd see him in the Palm restaurant. I'd say, how you doing? Like I forgot about it. And then they started rewriting it, and it didn't go well. They didn't get the money anyway. And then they brought Charlie Mitchell on from Alabama. He lives in Santa Barbara. A brilliant Southern writer from Alabama. And he changed somewhat the infrastructure of the whole thing, the foundation, and certain things with the care. And I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't, or wherever if it weren't for him. Mm-hmm. And he came to my farm in Virginia. We talked, and then finally they got the money 2 years ago. They said, we got the money, we're going to go. I said, well, I'm not ready to go. And I thought, well, I better be ready to go. Because it's such a very unique script. They won't be doing a remake of this in 10 years or a sequel. Because it's quite unique and, a nice Southern tale. And so we went to Argentina to visit my wife's people in northern Argentina. And they're in the hotel, and you see the Andes, the beautiful Andes Mountains. They're beautiful. And I just would sit there and study this script, mm-hmm. and get a sense of solitude and a guy that lived alone, of aloneness and being alone, just looking at those mountains. So I just let the writing carry me. And I think without sometimes I go for when I played Robert E. Lee in a movie, I talked exactly like my father, because Robert E. Lee grew up exactly when my father came out in house, that southern type of Virginia accent. But with this, I didn't think about it. I just let some influence, some kind of echoing of my father and my uncles, kind of creep in a little bit. So I didn't really go for an accent, but the beginning of the South is Virginia, really. And to let that kind of seep in and take over. But, I didn't really do a lot of, research or anything. I just let the writing take me along. Just let it take me along.
What about preparing for that time period?
Well, I think I see performances sometimes where I see people acting the period and acting the costume rather than just being the human being. How do we know that they're that much different than we are now? I know when you see politicians speak then, they do speak different from now. It was more black and white then and more staccato. But I think that somewhat similar to now. Just try to be a human being, really, and maybe the way I delivered lines and everything was not so much different than they did back then, because I let something of my father and my uncles come in, my father graduated from college in 1924, so this was in the 30s. This script.
I know it was a fast shoot. And
yeah, well, 24 or 5 days, yeah.
And I believe you said you only got one take of the scene with Sissy Spacek.
That's all I wanted. That's all she wanted. It worked. Mm-hmm. Usually, people will know that sometimes when they get an important scene, they'll beat it to death all day long. This angle, and by the end of it, so they had 3 cameras this way and then on her, and it just went right in one take. Mm-hmm. And on her, it was over. It was not like you were exhausted, after. So, but it worked. I had thought about it. Was kind of like a play. Usually, when a movie's over, that's it. I don't go back to the location or anything. That's it. When this was over, for 2 to 3 weeks after that, it was like a theater piece. I'd say those same lines to myself at night. The speech, it stayed with me for like a month almost afterwards. So it became so ingrained in me.
This film has a great ensemble cast too.
Yeah, it does.
Did you have any say in the casting?
Just maybe a little, not a lot, some. But they cast Sissy Spacek, and they thought of her, and then they got Bill Murray like at the last minute. He's great. And then Gerald McCraney, wonderful actor, came and did a small part. He was on Broadway in Horton Foote's Dividing the Estate, wonderful actor. And then Lucas Black, who was like this big when we did Sling Blade.
Right.
He's grown up now, and boy, he's a character, this guy. I just did a movie with him, a golf movie. He's a legitimate scratch golfer. When he did All the Pretty Horses, he said, I want to be a bass fisherman. He played 1 round of golf. That was 12 years ago. Now he wants to be a professional golfer. But he was with us, and he fit it because, he's got that deep Alabama accent.
Yeah.
And like somebody said, he works hard at trying not to get rid of the accent. But he's very talented, and it just was a wonderful cast. Mm-hmm. A wonderful cast. We all kind of had 24 days. What are you going to do? That's it.
Was it a difficult shoot because of the amount of time?
Well, yes and no. I remember I did a movie one time. It was like a half hour, 45-minute wait between each take. One of these big budget films. Here, you have 24 days or 25 days. Sometimes I find if you work quickly, it's better. Mm-hmm. You go. I mean, maybe this is heresy to say, but I said it the other day. I think a guy like Stanley Kubrick, the great director, was an actor's enemy. 70 takes. Why? Why 70 takes?
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, what's the reason? I mean, 2, 3, 4 takes and that's it. If you need, so we didn't have any more time to do any more than that anyway. So it was enough. So 24 days sufficed.
In mentioning your great co-stars, we should mention the mule.
The United States champion mule is Gracie. Amazing Grace is her name. From 20 miles from me, you'd think maybe the best mule would come from Tennessee, Texas, Georgia. Well, they shipped her down there. She never really showed what she could do. She can pray, play the piano, go to the mailbox and get the letter, say, no, it's the wrong letter. She'll go back and get the right letter. jump over a jump from a standstill with a ball, put it in the basket, then go over and open a soft drink. And she's got a baby sister that's doing the same thing. Now they dress up in a hunting. They go hunting and shoot the bird and she'll retrieve the bird. It's amazing. He's won the national championship, and so we took her down there, and she was great, And that one scene where I introduced Sissy to the mule, that was improvised. Mm-hmm. Meet the Mule, Amazing Grace. It was nice, So and one day it was like an actor. Gracie had too much.
Oh, really?
They did too many takes. She took off for Virginia. Took them a half an hour to find her. They didn't know when they had it.
I was going to say she stormed off to her trailer, but I don't think you had trailers on this film.
Yeah, we did.
You did, okay.
We had some, yeah. We didn't have much time to be in them because we worked a lot, yeah.
Who was harder to work with, the Mule or Bill Murray?
Well, they both could be stubborn, I think. No, Bill, they're different.
Yeah.
I call Bill Murray a smart ass with talent. Very talented. He's I told him he's one of the few guys out of Saturday Night Live that's a legitimate actor. He can cut them out. He's very good. He would play music between scenes. It was great. And my wife would be off camera. She'd hear him during the take, and between takes, she'd just be splitting her sides all day long. Very funny guy. And that was good for the set, mm-hmm. And his playing music. He's a very talented guy.
Yeah, I heard he kept a lot of levity on the set.
Oh, a lot. It's great. Yeah, very much so.
Are you the kind of actor who, specifically when I look at the role of Felix Busch, I think how hard that must be to leave at the end of the day and then come back and get into? Do you take your characters home with you? Never?
No. I mean, some actors do. I mean, during the daytime, you got to think about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was the first day we were filmed in this house, and the most important item on any given set to me is the chair, to sit down. So there was a room, it was very dark, I'd go down and sit in the chair, just wait for my next, everybody thought I was staying in character. I was just resting is what I was doing. I loved the chair, that was all I was doing really, just waiting for my next time to go on, But I mean, I think if a scene goes well, you feel so good that it went well that you can go home and go out and have dinner, go here, go there, joke around, without being in the character all the time. I mean, that would wear you out, I think,
Do you have any ways that help you decompress or at the end of a day, sort of get out of that space?
Go out. There was a terrific Chinese restaurant right near where we were in a little shopping mall, so we'd go there and have some very good food and watch a little television, and unwind. It can be tiring too, mm-hmm. after a day's shoot,
I actually want to talk about a couple movies you've done in recent years, starting with The Road.
Yeah.
And I have to say, yeah.
That's an interesting story. Go ahead.
What's amazing to me is I didn't recognize you at first. And the fact that at this point in your career, you would be unrecognizable to me, it was like halfway through, I was like, oh my God, that's Robert Duvall.
After 3 hours of makeup, I guess, it was interesting. 2 days, there was enough with all that makeup and the eyes and everything. That was an interesting shoot. I've never worked with a more gracious, wonderful guy, Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful guy. His first 8 years, he grew up in Argentina.
How that?
I can't speak Spanish like this guy speaks beautiful Spanish. He sends muffins over in the morning. He has his favorite Argentine soccer team flag, and he's just a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy.
He's fantastic in the movie, and he actually told a story about the first scene that he and Cody, the young boy, shot with you. He wondered if Cody would be intimidated by you.
No.
Yeah. He asked him, he said, what did you think of Mr. Duvall? And Cody said, yeah, the old guy's pretty good.
Well, it was an interesting part. There wasn't a lot to it, but I felt something was missing. The director was one of these guys that wanted to control it. He was on top of everything, so I didn't say anything. I said to Viggo, I'm going to try something here. So I made up a whole scene when I said action. I made up a scene that I had a son. I was looking for him on the road. I couldn't find him. And it gave me something very special and emotional. It wasn't in the script. and they liked it. And then when I guess Cormac McCarthy saw it, he said it was okay. But I made up the whole scene right on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they left it in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know there's actually a big debate. I don't know if you're aware
What?
of this, but fans of the film wonder if his son became a cannibal.
My son.
Yeah.
There was no son.
Oh, he made up the son.
I made it up at the spot. When I said action and cut, I made it up in between those two words.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I told Vigo, hold on, I'm going to do something. So I did. Yeah. He's great to work with, and the kid too, yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. The reason I mention that story, though, is because it's sort of a strange question, but are you aware, what's it like to be Robert Duvall and come to a set knowing that everyone there is sort of in awe of you?
No. Well, the thing is, I had contact lenses, and I was like this. I mean, I felt old. I mean, I was old because I had all the makeup. My wife was leading me around, like, you know. It was a good thing it was only for 2 days. And when we did that scene, that scene where I improvised, it was in a hollow with trees. It was a big fire. It was potentially very dangerous to get out of there. So, you know, they treated you treat us. It was okay, yeah.
On other sets, has it been a problem where actors are intimidated by you?
No, it's okay.
They just hide it well, I think.
No, it's you just join in and do it, you know, become part of the group. Yeah.
Another film from last year was one of my favorite films of last year, Crazy Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's applause, but it's also just now. You were also a producer on this film.
Yeah, I helped get that off the ground. Yeah.
And how did that? Because you knew the writer-director.
Yeah, I knew Scott Cooper, and they. Some people said I didn't know if we wanted him to direct what I said, no, I'm not going to direct this. That's his, and he got it off the ground. Then I wrote a letter to Jeff, and he's such a wonderful actor, and. He came aboard, and then he got, when he heard T-Bone Burnett was on, the great, you know, songwriter and arranger, and it was worked out very well. That was only 25 days too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in Santa Fe.
Jeff has famously said he turned down the role.
I know he did.
Originally.
Yeah.
Did you have to convince him?
Well, I wrote a letter, you know. But I think what convinced him, what really made it work, was when T-Bone came on, the great music guy. Yeah, that's what really did it.
And you let Jeff do his own singing.
Yeah, well, you have to. I mean, everybody has to do their own. Everybody wants to do that, you know. And I saw recently the last third of Coal Miner's Daughter, Sissy Spacek, was wonderful. She had that singing just down in Loretta Lynn. It was great. So they do well, country western movies and the music, you know.
Is it true you actually didn't intend on being in the film? They kind of needed you.
Yeah, I don't know why. They said, do a part. I said, okay, do a little bit. And then I sang a little song at the end. And Billy Joe Shavers called me, hey, man, thank you so much for singing that song and remembering me. I remembered him to the tune of $40,000. Little did I know when I opened my mouth that it was going to cost us that much. You know. But anyway.
It's on the soundtrack, too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You know.
I remember even before the film came out, you were saying Jeff was going to win the Oscar for it.
I did?
Yes, you did.
Well, I knew he'd be up because he's such a good actor. He's been up many times. You know, he was due. He was due, absolutely.
Were you aware while you were making the film of the comparisons people would make between Tender Mercies and...
No, they asked me. I said there's a basic difference between the two characters. Jeff Bridges, except for my character, had no support group. None. In Tender Mercies, I had a wife, a new wife, a baby, a small boy, you know, a baptism. So I had a support system to get me out of that whole past life of being a drunk. Jeff had no support system. So I think that was a big difference there. And what I liked about the movie, too, when the woman turned him down after he lost a child, I respected her for not going back to him. Most women will go back to him, I think. Yeah.
No, I think you're right, actually. Yeah. And I think even some members of the audience want them to get together at the end, even.
She had, it was interesting.
Yeah. Even Jeff said that because she becomes engaged to someone else.
Yes.
He's like, yeah, but I kind of think that marriage doesn't work out, and we end up back together.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's his character talking.
Sequel, yeah.
Crazier Heart.
Crazier Heart.
Yeah, it's got a nice ring.
Loquito Corazón. Yeah.
See, you know Spanish. Looking back on your career, what can you pinpoint the hardest scene you've ever had to shoot, or the hardest film experience?
I'd have to think about that. Yeah, there were a few, I guess. Yeah, I'd have to think about it. There were some for sure, for certain. Yeah. The overall hardest one was doing Stalin over there, really? With the changing of the guard. We actually filmed in the Kremlin. It was tough, but it was rewarding, you know. But there were others too that weren't so rewarding. I'm sure. I have to think about it. There were a number.
Have you ever had trouble accessing a character?
How do you mean?
Just struggling to figure out how to play it.
Yeah, I'm sure. You try to go with your first instinct, and then something you change the first impression as well. You know, then you just, no matter what you choose, you're still you doing it in a certain way. So you go back to the basics. Let the basics dictate. You know, talking and listening.
When people approach you, what movies do they mention the most?
Well, when I'm in. Going down the street, a guy got a boom box. Hey man, I see you in colors. You know, kid with a boom box. Hey. See some kid hanging over, you know, fixing a car. Hey, like in Days of Thunder. You know. Yeah, you know, Texas, Lonesome Dove is a Bible.
Yeah,
it's a Bible. Or there's one guy in Texas when I did Eisenhower, he said, "Hell, it'd always be act to me." He said, you know, so. But I forgot that one anyway. But Lonesome Dove is like a real, you know, and different things. Then people come out of the blue about something you don't even think about, you know. Hey man, I saw you do a death scene in this movie or something like that, you know. But it depends on the locale sometimes. Yeah.
For some reason, the one I've been hearing a lot is The Great Santini.
Yeah.
It's been coming up a lot.
Yeah. We talked about that recently. Yeah, today you did a thing on that.
Oh, yeah?
An interview on Pat Conroy, yeah.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah, wonderful writer, yeah.
It's funny, I've seen parodies of the basketball scene.
Yeah.
And I never understood what they were parodying until I saw the movie much later than the fact.
Right.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, it's such a memorable character. What was sort of your take on him? Were you sympathetic to him, or...
Well, you kind of have to like doing it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's funny about this business, as you all know. You know, everything is about awards and Oscars. I mean, people go for that. When I first met, the first meeting we had with a producer, I think it's the director was there. I literally sat into my chair, and as I sat, the guy said, "Well, they're talking about Oscars." You know, I mean, this was before we even rehearsed or anything. I mean, you know, it's like people. You got to be careful not treating things too preciously.
Yeah.
You know? But it was good filming in Beaufort, South Carolina. When I went to look for a house, I went in and to the real estate office, you know, and I was pretty fit then. I had my hair cut, and the woman said, "There's somebody out front looking for a house to rent. Who is it?" I said, "I don't know, some Marine out there," you know. So it was like that. So then I was looking for houses, and I never forget. I saw a house on a corner where they have the bayous and everything, and I thought, God, it would be neat to rent that house. But who would ever? So I knocked on a door, and this sweet, genteel, elderly Southern lady came to the door. And I said, "Do you have a beautiful house?" I said, "Would you ever think about renting this house?" She said, "But where would I go?" She said. You know, so that was that, you know. So I got another house on. Yeah. And I learned an interesting thing because I love soft-shell crabs. My brother used to catch 6 of them when he lived in Annapolis, and they don't have them in South Carolina. I said, "Why?" Because the tides were so severe, they wash them out.
Really?
Because they have to lay in the brackish water, you know. But some of that low country cooking is nice, you know, around there, you know. Yeah.
I'm noticing a theme with you and food.
Yeah, I know.
Wondering, have you ever picked a role based on its proximity to great restaurants?
I probably have. Yeah. Or who's going to be the caterer? The caterer, I think they used to be better now. They were bad, and then there was 4 stars. They'd play string quartet music and serve food on the set.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but you got to be careful because sometimes you do a movie and craft service is the weakness. That's sometimes the best food. And by the time you start a movie at 165, you end up like 180. It's true. You expand.
I was just about to ask you, actually, how you think the business of acting has changed over the years, aside from craft services. You've had big success in independent films like The Apostle.
Yeah.
What are the advantages and the disadvantages of indie filmmaking?
Well, I don't know. I think it's a great thing. I think in the 70s, some famous director said there are no good movies made since the 70s. Well, he hasn't made any good movies since the 70s. I think there have been many good movies made. Now the independent filmmaking process was within the system in the 70s. Now it's outside. And I think Get Low could have fit into the 70s. I think it could have fit in with, but I think the actors are better than ever. I mean, look at all the black actors get the Spanish act worldwide. I mean, I say there's room for all. Let the young people come in. Going into the 21st century, people would rather rather than write novels and things. Sometimes they'd rather be a film director or actor or whatever. It's a very kind of hip medium filmmaking.
Yeah.
The films I directed, I like more like the Iranian films. They say it's not fiction, and it's not, it's not a documentary, and it's not a regular film. It's a combination. So I like that way, doing that way. But there's so many ways to do it. So many different approaches, really.
I actually want to take some questions from the audience, and I apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name in advance. Question from Angela Marie Volpe. Hopefully I got that right. You might have actually already answered this, but what was your favorite role and why? Oh,
Lonesome Dove, I think, because he's such a unique guy.
Yeah.
A unique guy, and he loved whores, he loved women, he loved life, he respected women, he respected whores, he just was he said we killed all the people that were interesting anyway, just a very interesting guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Question from Miri Hunter. What was the hardest thing about the beginning of your journey as an actor?
So the hardest thing? Just keeping focus and try to get day to day, eat, sleep, get a job, and just keep it and persevere. I mean, just something you just have to keep doing. Yeah.
It is a tough business, and
yeah, it is.
Did you ever think of quitting or trying something else?
I quit for a summer once. That my first play off Broadway. Listen to this now. We did a play it was a guy from the Actors Studio. We did a Shaw play. He had everybody lying down doing sense memory in a Shaw play, if you can believe that. So I had to get off a bus. Said Shaw has invented some impossible young men in these plays, but never one so revolting as the romantic young interest in this one. And the characters made even less palatable by Robert Duvall, whose spine tends toward a figurettes, whose diction is flannel-coated, and whose simpering expressions are moronic. Now let's see, anybody has a worse review than that. I'll take you out to dinner. So, I had to get off the bus. And my mother was traveling in Europe with her friends, and my father called me up, and there was another. And when one of the other reviewers likened me to Liberace, I had to get off the bus. I was sick. And my father, I called my father up. He called me Bernie. That was my nickname. He said, "Hey, Bernie, I read all about you in the paper." I didn't know what he thought. So I went home and quit for the summer, and then I came back, and Ulu Grosso, my friend, he kind of bolstered me up. But we all have those bad times.
Was that when you stopped reading reviews?
No, I got a few good ones. So, but I just that was probably justified, that one. Sometimes they don't. I read reviews about other people and I say, wait a minute, I saw that performance. What's this guy talking about? I mean, So I don't read them too much. Mm-hmm. No, you hear about them sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you were getting great reviews for Get Low.
Yeah, I guess that's what I've heard that. Yeah.
That's what they tell you.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Question from Vern Urich. It's a question about American Buffalo. What do you remember about doing American Buffalo, and will you ever go back to theater?
Probably not, but I mean, if I had to, I could feel comfortable doing it. I like smaller theaters like this, maybe, but big theater, yeah, I could go back, I think, but doing American Buffalo, I mean, I remember sitting in the chair, coming on stage. I had 5 fucking Ruthies in the beginning, fucking Ruthie, and I come on and I'm so mad because Ruthie, and I aim my concentration at the Actors Studio at 44th Street. And it was right there, actually, and because she takes a piece of toast off my plate, and I'm so mad at her for taking my toast off, And it's like I've been out all night, and I made some comment about the Actors Studio, and then I heard that Lee Strasberg came to see it twice. He thought it was the best thing on Broadway, so I felt a little funny. Yeah, but I remember doing that, and then I was eating peanuts in the thing, and somebody kept talking, and I took peanuts and threw them all over the guy and kept talking. But I never invited my parents because the language was so rough. It really was.
Do your parents, have they had a favorite role of yours?
Oh, I don't know. They've gone now, but I don't know. I guess I would invite them to when I take them to Europe maybe for a week when I was doing something. I remember and I was doing a part, and the actor blew his lines. There was a silence, and I heard my mother say, "Well, you never see my son blowing his line." And then on the set of Eisenhower, she's so proud. She's taking a picture of me. She's taking a picture of her own nose, But they never talked about what was the favorite part. But they, I guess they were proud. They finally paid off. I guess. Yeah.
We have a question from Jane. Right there. Would you talk a little about what you like to do for fun, aside from acting and filmmaking? What gives you the most joys?
Well, I like to have hobbies and social dance and go out with friends, in whole court, have lunch, 3 or 4 hour lunches. Like Jimmy Kahn said, I don't do lunch. I said, okay, you will do dinner, So we'll, to be with friends is a wonderful thing, and what we call holding court. I like to hold court like we're doing now. It's just, and be with different kinds of I always wanted to have a character party, which I do sometimes. I like to find characters, really interesting characters, because people are interesting. But different things. My wife and I like to travel, and we go to Argentina to see her people, and
when did
friendships.
You first develop your love for tango?
Oh, years ago when I did, I'd finished, I hadn't done The Apostle yet, but I was doing research, and I went to see Tango Argentina on Broadway with June Carter Cash.
Wow.
And we went to see it, and I said, wow, that's interesting. And I met the guys, and I started doing it. And then when I went to Argentina, I found that it was all wrong. I mean, you have to go back to the basics, like they do the two-step in Texas, or the West Coast swing, or they do the Lindy Hop in New York City. It's a cultural dance where they dance counterclockwise, and you can't do too many fancy things. You kick somebody. It's and the beginning and the end of the tango is the walk. That's it, the walk. If you could, it takes 10 years to walk right. So it's interesting. When I first started, I get up in front of anybody. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I did. Now I know more. I'm more hesitant about getting up. Because they rip each other down in Argentina. Oh, they rip each other down.
Really?
Ooh, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I have a question from Paul. Wants to know, what's the strangest place you've ever been recognized?
The strangest place I've ever been recognized. I'm recognized in Texas a lot. So now I'm, there are 2 stories in Texas. I'm in a club, and I'm always recognized in Texas. And a guy, I'm against the wall with my Coca-Cola or whatever, and people are out there dancing and everything. The guy sees me, and he approaches me, like knowing that I'm the only guy in the room that knows who I am, and he's the only guy in the room. And as he passes by me, he doesn't want to say anything, and so he goes, "Terry Bradshaw." But my favorite story of all, I swear to God, we were driving from Austin to, when I leave a movie set, that's it. But I like going back to Abilene, Texas. Not so pretty, but I like the people out there. And the Perini Steak Ranch, he was going to cook at 9/11 at the White House, and whatever was what happened. And he had all these cowboys, and so I go there a lot. And Billy Bob Thornton still says the best meal he ever had. We worked out there, so now we're driving there with it was the second time she's taken the wrong road in like 2 years. So she's going out towards San Angelo. Now we're on a highway, and there's nobody on this highway. Beautiful highway. She's going 90, 95. Her father used to be a race car driver in Argentina. She didn't want me to drive, and that's okay. So she's driving 95 miles. Here comes a state trooper, pulls us over. Ma'am, did you know that you? I don't believe this Lonesome Dove, he says. Follow me. So now we go back to where we should have turned, which I told her, and he gets on his phone. Here comes the wife, the kids. We talk. And they're not provincial people. They're pretty hip people. We talk about this. We have our pictures taken. It was just terrific. Wonderful people. So now it says, when you go down to Abilene, this is the road you should take. So I made a joke. There was a double line. And I said, now, if I cross that line, you're not going to give me a ticket, are you? And without losing a beat, his wife said, well, if he does, he won't be allowed in my bed tonight. That's my favorite story of my whole career.
The perks of being a legend.
Yeah.
I don't see any way that I can top that. So I think I'm going to thank you for spending this time with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.